now that we prepare the mirepoix, we're going to prepare the stock. Now stock comes from simmering bones of either chicken, turkey, beef, what have you, to produce a flavorful broth. Now a broth is prepared when you leave the meat on. Now I prefer using a whole chicken for the chicken stock because it produces meat that we're going to then use in the soup. All right, so it's more efficient that way. You can use backs and necks and so forth, and that'll produce a fine flavored stock. But if you want meat to put in the soup, then you want to use a whole bird. All right, I usually use a fryer or a roaster, it doesn't matter. But usually a bird this size will produce about 2 or 3 quarts of stock. So the number one rule is you want to make sure that you thoroughly wash the chicken before you start. So let me show you how to cut up the chicken. Now, purchasing a whole chicken is much more reasonable than one that's already cut up. Price is at least half, if not less than that. Very easy to cut up, so you save yourself a little bit of money and buy a whole chicken. Now, it comes with a little bag of giblets. This is the neck, one of the best things for stock there is. So you want to put that in the stock pan. The next thing you want to cut off are the wings. So you just grab it by the wing. You want to cut it kind of in the underarm, just like that, and twist it a little bit. It should come right off there, okay? You want to grab the other wing, and again, you want to cut it kind of into the underarm, as it were. And you want to come around the other side. You can pop the joint, and then you want to cut through there, okay? Now, the next thing you want to do is cut off the leg. Now, you want to cut through the skin here, and that's going to come right off from the side of the body. If you pop out the joint there, you can see the leg. You want to come through the back of that. Okay. And it doesn't matter if it's neat or clean because it's all getting boiled up anyway, but you want to cut through the skin, you want to pop the joint just like that, and you want to come through the back just like that. All right. Now the next you have the breast and the back. The back actually is the best part for producing a flavorful stock. So you want to just kind of pull that apart, and you'll see the wishbone here. And you want to kind of back it out through there, and you want to separate those two out, just like that. Okay. Now, after you're done here, the next step is very critical. You want to thoroughly rinse the chicken. So let me show you how to do that. So what you want to do now is rinse this chicken 3 times. All right, you want to get ice cold water out of the tap, and you want to fill the pot until it's almost all the way converged, covered almost to the top. You want to massage the chicken until it's completely kind of released a lot of the juices around it. And you want to rinse that off and do that 3 times until the liquid that you see in the bottom of this pot here is completely crystal clear. If you don't, you're going to have a cloudy stock that's sour. It's not going to taste very good. So as you can see, as we fill this up, the water's kind of cloudy. And as I massage this chicken, watch what happens. You can see how much cloudier it gets. This is all just the parts of the chicken that will make a cloudy stock. See how it gets kind of bloody, kind of cloudy, and so forth. So you want to massage that chicken real good. And you want to drain this water right out of there. All right. And you just want to repeat that. You want to do that as many times as necessary. Generally, I find it's 3 times is what it takes to make sure that you have a crystal clear stock. This step is one of the most critical parts. If you miss this step, you're going to have a sour, cloudy stock. Okay? So I'm going to fill it up again, and we're going to massage it up again. And you want to get all these impurities out, all the blood and so forth. All right, so you can see it's very cloudy again. It's kind of pinkish. You want to get rid of all that. And this is importance of having a very clean sink. I use my sink as a container, a vessel, a mixing bowl. I wash lettuce in it. It has to be clean because if you drop a piece of chicken in there, you don't want it to be dirty. So you have to keep this sink clean at all times. I use dish soap only, no cleansers, no chemicals. Stainless steel should be aseptic as long as you keep it nice and clean. So as you see here, on the 3rd fill up, it's starting to look a lot clearer. All right, we're starting to see a little bit less the cloudiness, and we're going to get a pure tasting stock now. I'm still going to massage it one more time. Get any last remaining tidbits out of here. Kind of massage that chicken. And you see a little bit of cloudiness, but it's definitely not anywhere near where it was. Okay, so I'm going to drain that one more time. Get all that out of there. Now you want to fill it up with ice cold water. Generally use filtered water of some sort at this point. Okay? All right, so we've got the chicken thoroughly clean. I've filled this up with filtered water now. All right, it's ice cold and it's just barely enough to cover the chicken. Now, if you want to make about 8 quarts to 6 quarts of soup, you're going to need about 2 whole chickens. This is going to produce probably about 2 quarts of stock. You want to turn it on high blast here, and you want to add a little bit of salt at this point. Salt's going to draw out some of the impurities in the chicken, and it's going to start to foam up. And that's the second most important step of the stock. As this foams up, you need to skim off that foam, or you're going to have, again, a cloudy, sour stock. All right, so it's going to take a few minutes. We'll wait for that to come up to simmer. All right, so the chicken has come up to the simmer, and you can see that there's some floating debris, so to speak. It's kind of a foamy nature. What you want to do is strain this off now. Very critical to get rid of all this impurity before you continue. Because what happens is if it doesn't get skimmed now, it will dissolve back into the broth and will cause cloudiness and sourness. All right, so you're going to make sure you get most of it off before you continue. When you're done skimming it, then you want to add some peppercorns. Obviously, if you added peppercorns in the beginning, you'd be skimming the peppercorns off now because they do float in the stock here. All right, so you want to kind of be very careful, get all the stuff off there you can. You might have to do this process a couple times, but you want to make sure you get all that stuff out of there. Now that you've gotten off the scum, you want to add a few peppercorns to the broth. Now I use basically salt and peppercorns is the only seasoning I use for my chicken broth. I don't use celery, onion, carrot, anything like that, because I think I just want pure chicken flavor. I'll add the other vegetables during the soup process itself. All right? So now that we've get rid of the scum, added the peppercorns, the salt's already in there, we're going to simmer this for 2-3 hours. So what we have here is the chicken that's been simmering for about 2.5 hours now. And what we're going to do is put it out on the back porch on a grate and let it cool down a little bit before we strain it. And then we're going to separate the chicken, we're going to separate the stock, skim off the fat, and you're ready to go. All right, so now the chicken is cooled enough so we can handle it. And we're just basically pulling the meat away from the bone. And we're letting the stock chill right now so that the fat will come to the surface and we can skim that off. We'll just have pure chicken stock. All right. You're going to make sure you get all the cartilage and the gristle and the bones out of here. Here we have the finished product of the chicken stock. We took a small roaster and we simmered it for 2.5 hours, and it produced 2 quarts of chicken stock and about 1 quart of pulled meat. All right, so if you're going to make an 8 quart soup, you want to have 2 whole chickens, which will produce 2 quarts of meat and 4 quarts of liquid, and the rest being the mirepoix and vegetables that will fill up the volume of that soup. All right? But the chicken stock made from scratch is going to have a high amount of collagen, and in fact, when it cools, it'll turn into a jelly-like structure if you really did it well. Okay, so don't panic in the morning if it's all congealed. That means you did a real good job. The pulled chicken here, one bit of advisement is not to add it back into the soup until the very end, because it's been cooking for 2.5 hours and it will break apart and lose its texture. So generally you want to add it right at the end so it doesn't break apart.